it came to light, that was on the 14th of August 2001, when an employee of Chilbolton looked out of the window and noticed something, not knowing he was seeing a crop circle, but just let it go. And and then I think it was on the 20th that Lucy Pringle was informed about it and went to see it. And on a ground level, it didn't make any sense. It were just circles, dots, meaningless cluster. But once you looked at it from above, or you saw a picture, you literally saw the bigger picture.
Nothing like this had ever appeared in the fields before. Something which was dramatic. It was completely new evolutionary stage in the crop circle history.
In 2001, a complex pattern suddenly appeared in Roger Hunt's arable field in Chilbolton. Lucy, who has documented several crop circles, explains why this was something out of the ordinary.
Well, I suppose what was particularly unique about them was when I first flew over them, they looked just like a mess in the ground. There was no geometry to them. There was just, it was as though you got wind damage in the field, and yet they were in a sort of definite area which did appear to mean something, but what on earth it meant. I said to the pilot, we might as well fly around it. I said, I don't know what the heck it is, but let's have a go, we'll fly around it. And you always orbit around everything because you have to get the light right, and you have to, if there's anything there, you have to get it at the right view. And those were the days when I was still taking film. And I had a lab way down in a little village, and I took this film down to the printer, and I said, I really don't know what I've taken today. I think it's probably an awful mess. So he put it in, and as it came out, we both said, ah, that's a face. Couldn't believe it. And then we thought, well, if that's something, then the other one must be something too. And this long strip came out, which clearly was a code of some sort. And we couldn't believe it. Nothing like this had ever appeared in the fields before. Something which was dramatic. It was completely new evolutionary stage in the crop circle history. And so then I sent it off to my webmaster, Paul Weige, who was actually managing my website at the time, and he heard about it. And from my photographs, he started to decipher and interpret what it was. He was absolutely brilliant, and he made a point saying that the message was pulsed by the radio telescope in a binary form consisting of 1,679 pulses. And this apparently is a completely unique combination of two prime factors, 23 and 73. And binary is the universal language that when you were attempting to communicate with other existences, it was very similar to the message that had been sent out by the Arecibo. This is why it was called the Arecibo message, because it was sent out by the Arecibo telescope in Puerto Rico, which was the largest radio telescope at that time.
In 1974, the astronomers Carl Sagan and Frank Drake created an interstellar radio message that NASA sent from the Arecibo telescope in Puerto Rico into space towards the globular star cluster M13, situated about 25,000 light-years from Earth. The Arecibo message is a binary string carrying basic information about humanity and Earth. It was meant as a demonstration of human technological achievement, rather than a real attempt to enter into a conversation with extraterrestrials. The Arecibo message contained information about our calculation system, the atomic numbers of the elements that create DNA, the formulas for DNA and the structure of DNA, the dimension of an average human and our population, the graphics of our solar system, indicating which planet we live on, and finally, a graphic of the Arecibo radio telescope, the transmission device.
That is the original formation. That was how it looked. I'm not certain if that was binary or that was binary.
27 years after the message was sent into space from the Arecibo radio telescope in Puerto Rico, these formations appeared in a wheat field next to the Chilbolton Observatory in the south of England, with an identical pattern. Upon closer inspection, it was discovered that the message contained fundamental differences. The message contained the same counting system, 1 to 10, but said that actually silicon is the dominant building block of life and not carbon, as written in the original code. The figure in the picture showed another body. The DNA code contained 3 strands instead of 2, and it also contained a correction from our sent message where an error occurred during the transmission and missed a digit in the DNA strand. It inhabits 3rd, 4th and 5th in their solar system and has a population closer to 21.4 billion. The lowest image on the radio telescope is replaced with something more complex. Is this an incredibly sophisticated joke or something else?
It was as though they were adding extra bits of knowledge which to them were absolutely important and vital. It was just extraordinary that there was so much information contained in that, which basically they were just little tufts of crop in the field. This was next to a radio telescope. Now, is there some necessary connection in some sort of scientific way that this is an element which is necessary or important in the placing or the forming of these particular crop circles? Well, they're not crop circles, they are patterns in the field, which you can't really describe them as circles. They're beyond that.
There are many amazing crop circles, but some are outstanding, like real masterpieces, and the Chilbolton ones, the Chilbolton event, is one of them. My name is Monique Klinkenberg, and I became interested in the phenomenon, and I decided to spend the rest of my life researching this phenomenon. So I sold my company and left my old world behind. The facts about the Chilbolton event, well, first of all, it's a very complex situation on many levels. Not only the circle, or you can't even say circles because it's rectangular. And starting with that, it was the first rectangular formation ever appeared, and also a recognizable face, which was stunning at that time. And actually nothing like that happened since then. If you learn about what it could be, it is simply mind-blowing. And if you would ask me the question, when did it start? It could be that it started on November 16, 1974, when Carl Sagan and Frank Drake thought we going to convey a message into space, a binary code message with data. So first of all, they thought it was a remake of the message, but then they saw that there were differences, that it could be read as a reply to the message sent into space. They compared it to each other, and while comparing it, they saw there were similarities, but also differences. And the first difference was they added silicon to the elements. And then we have this big surprise at the end. The message sent into space shows the Arecibo telescope as a transmission medium. And then in the reply, there is a stylish version of a crop circle, which makes you think, and this crop circle appeared 1 year before, exactly at the same spot and in the same field. So it's really an amazing story. I think you really have to learn about crop circles to give an opinion on it. The moment I first stood in the middle of the night in a field of grain, that was the moment I really realized it is how can people make those complex formations with planks and ropes, and why would they do it? Nobody claimed doing this so far. I wish somebody did. I really love to meet the artist, because I think it is amazing what has been shown here. And nobody claimed it, and it makes you think, what is going on? Who would do this, and why? I don't see why you put so much effort into a joke. I mean, you have to be a genius to figure this out, to make this. If you look at the whole story, why would a genius do something like that? It's crazy. It doesn't make sense at all. And that's what is so fascinating. You know, it's too good to be true if you look at it, and then it makes you suspicious. But if you go back to the logic of it, I mean, why should anybody do this? And how do they do it? It makes you think, and basically, for me, I come to the conclusion there must be something else going on than just people with planks and ropes. This is just impossible. I think that if people want to make a masterpiece like this, you have to rehearse it. Not once, not twice, maybe 10 times. At least that's my opinion. I haven't heard of any rehearsal at all.
This isn't a modern phenomenon, and it's a universal phenomenon. It's been recorded in excess of 65 different countries. And the earliest report we have is of a woodcut in 1678, which tells the story of a farmer who had a field of oats in Hertfordshire, and when they were ready to be harvested, he called in, we'll have to ignore that, he called in a harvester. But apparently he was going to charge so much that he said the devil would take his oats. The farmer did. He said, the devil would take his oats, and that's why it's called the mowing devil. But the next morning when he went in, he found part of his field laid down in round circles, and apparently was terrified. But that was a woodcut, because that was the way they had of recording things in those days. You can see the devil with a scythe, and he was cutting the crop. And this is such a famous woodcut that many people think the genuine ones are actually cut. The stalks are cut. They're not. They're just folded at the base. But then there was another report by John Aubrey. John Aubrey, he lived from 1628 to 1676. And he was a philosopher and an antiquarian historian, and he and William Stukeley recorded Stonehenge and Avebury as they were in those days. And but for them, we'd have no idea what those two magnificent places looked like. In fact, I think it was William Stukeley who said, if Stonehenge is a church, Avebury is a cathedral. Anyhow, John Aubrey, and the Aubrey stones of Stonehenge are named after him, he was fascinated by the round grass circles that he was seeing in the fields on the Wiltshire Downs. And he put it down to some sort of subterraneous vapour coming up from the ground. And this, he was right. 400 years ago, he had actually solved part of the forming process. Amazing. Amazing. So it goes back. It's not a modern phenomenon. It goes back years and years and years.
"20 minutes drive from Chilbolton is Stonehenge, a prehistoric monument also built in a circular formation. It consists of a megalithic stone setting surrounded by a circular earthen embankment. Recently, wooden stakes have been found in the ground, also built in enormous circles around the stone centre. Stonehenge is one of the world's oldest monuments, built about 6,000 years ago, and we still don't know today its original purpose."
Yes, I know Stonehenge is close and Avebury is close, and there are many more standing circles around that are close. There is a kind of, maybe they could be linked up, the whole stone circle idea to the whole crop circle idea. It could be. Well, we know for a fact that the phenomenon is going on already for centuries. And it all escalated in 1990 when a huge pictogram appeared in Eastfield. And from that moment on, things evolved into very complicated designs, geometrically perfect. Before 1990, they were simple straight circles, sometimes with an outer ring. And then in 1990 we had the first pictograms, and from that moment on we see a whole, it evolved into very complex things. Nobody has an answer to that. And also, what is very interesting, the crop circle phenomenon was, before 1990, it was mainly Hampshire. And then it migrated to Wiltshire. And then from 2009 onwards, it was reducing the numbers and the designs, and you could ask yourself the question, okay, was this the era for Wiltshire? Will it now move forwards to another county, or will it come back in Wiltshire? Or you just don't know. You don't know what you're dealing with. It's a very strange phenomenon. Mainly in Hampshire before 1990, and then Wiltshire, and what's next? You just don't know. If there's one constant thing in the whole crop circle thing for me, it is expect the unexpected. The good thing about known hoaxed formations, 100% known hoaxed formations, is that they give us information. How many people, how many hours. And if you compare hoaxed formations to formations where the origin is not claimed or clear, then it really makes you think. There is, for example, there has been a hoax formation in Holland. It were 50 people made it. It was well thought of. They were well instructed. It took I think 3 weeks of kind of rehearsal. And what they made was a big butterfly. It looked impressive, but it didn't have the accuracy, and it didn't came anywhere near to the masterpieces we know, those ones who appeared overnight in only a few hours. And imagine in the darkness with planks and ropes. No. It just doesn't make sense.
Chilbolton is an absolute genuine formation as far as I'm concerned. It is way too complex to be man-made. It appeared during the night with only a few hours of darkness, and the continuous watch of the people who work there and all the cameras, there's no way it could have been man-made. It would have been noticed. And it wouldn't have been so complex. It was the first formation that contained these little blocks, dots, and some of it was down, some of it was up, some of it was down. On the ground, it was a mess. You had no idea what you were looking at. Only when you flew over it, you could see what it was. So it was incredibly complex. The thin lines, the thinnest lines, especially in the face, were more narrow than a foot. Basically, my research contains every single aspect of the crop circle phenomenon. So when I started, I was very scientific about the whole subject because that is my background. So I focused on biophysical research and biophysical anomalies, like the differences that you find in plants and in the soil that tells you beyond a shadow of a doubt that the crop circle is not man-made, or whether it is man-made, because there's a big, big difference between them. The man-made crop formations have no anomalies, nothing special, no chemistry, whereas the real phenomenon it'll show you biophysical anomalies, which means differences in the plants that are very easy to detect also for the human eye. You can just go on your hands and knees in a crop circle and really observe the plants, and you will find that the nodes, the knuckles of the plants have altered. They are bigger. They sometimes have bends in them, like even 90-degree bends, and they just grow on, which is unheard of. No biophysicist can explain this. We have expulsion cavities, which is in normal English a blown node. So the nodes of the plant have exploded from the inside out, which is crazy. It is the same effect as you have when you put an egg in a microwave oven and it explodes because the moisture in the egg or in the plant is turned into steam because of the heat, and steam takes up more space than moisture. So the plant cannot contain the pressure, or the egg, and it explodes. So what kind of energy does that?
The message that was given back, so it seems, of course, could be a hoax. There's no way, to my opinion, that we can corroborate if this is genuine information. But if you look at it from a scientific point of view, we know that silicon is a good replacement for carbon. So that's possible. Even on our own planet, we know of animals in the most exotic circumstances. Very hot, very cold, very dry, whatever. So we know this whole universe that we can see, but we cannot reach, must be filled with life. Maybe intelligent life. Why not? If you regard us as intelligent, and that is a big question mark, of course. So I think the information could be true, yeah, but it could also be just someone who is making a joke. My name is Koen Vermeeren. I'm a Dutch aerospace engineer, and I've become involved in the UFO phenomenon since 2008, when students started to send in YouTube films, not only of aircraft that are crashing, which we find very interesting to learn from it, but also of UFOs. UFOs shot from the space shuttle and talked about by NASA astronauts. And that took my imagination, and I thought, well, we are not talking about this, so I should find out why this is such a taboo. I've written a book about UFOs in 2013, and for the occasion of the book presentation I just asked Edgar Mitchell if he would be present in a Skype session. He's a sixth man to walk on the moon, and he's one of the most outspoken astronauts who explains that UFOs are real, UFOs are extraterrestrial vehicles, and our governments know about it, but they don't want to talk about it. Well, he agreed to be on the Skype with us, and for 25 minutes he talked to the audience and to us about what he knew and what he thinks is important. There were two young people in the audience, and I asked them to ask him questions. And one of the questions was if he would explain about how it is like to watch the Earth from far away, which is apparently a very special feeling. And the other student asked if he knew about the relation between UFOs and crop circles. And he indeed said that there was a connection between the two. Of course, he didn't say what connection it was, or that he understands what is happening there, but he said there is a connection. To me, the video of the Oliver's Castle creation of the crop circles by UFOs, basically, seems very credible. He was new to the phenomenon, and he got lucky to shoot this incredible creation of a crop circle. But everybody says that he showed his footage immediately after the crop circle was found. And because people are flying over the area every day, know what crop circles have been created and are there in the fields and the places where they are not. So this one was new. It was shot in the early hours of the morning. It was shown to a lot of people, and everybody could see that this crop circle was new. And it was I think it was in 1996, and we didn't have Photoshop then. And you couldn't have made this perfect video with the means that people had, even in the, let's say, the studio at that time. So I think it's very credible. It corroborates many stories from witnesses who have seen the creation of crop circles, but not photographed or videoed it, but saw the same phenomenon. So it is a UFO technically. Of course it's energy, it's maybe radiation, well, we don't know that. But it might very well be that these objects are creating the crop circles. It's really a very specific message. But there's message in the 2D plane, just in the field, and just the image itself. It's a symbol. But often people report feelings of energy. Sometimes your equipment reacts with whatever that's present there. So it's more than only just what you can see with your eyes. And they're all totally different in that respect as well. People feel comfortable in one and do not feel comfortable in the other, and vice versa. I myself, I'm a left brain engineer, you could say. On the other hand, I can feel different vibrations in the field as well. In some of them you get like blurry eyes, in other ones you get very sick, and that goes basically beyond the psychological issues involved. So it's more than that. Maybe it's basically a message from above, that's possible, why not? Or it is something that is a technical thing, that they are radiating energy towards this planet. And as a byproduct you can see vibration in the field, because, well, we know from sound, if you have a plate with sand grains and you strike it with a violin stick, then you get a very specific pattern, which is specific to the specific sound. And maybe this is some phenomenon like this as well. Why not?
According to science, about 6% is man-made. 6 out of 100 are made by people. And we know that because we have had we've done a lot of scientific research on the biophysical anomalies and also the anomalies in the soil, because also the soil changes because of this energy input. Not many people are aware of that, but everything changes because of this energy. And you can measure it. It's very left brain science. You can do it in a lab, it's not rocket science. And then we find that 6 out of 100 formations have no anomalies whatsoever. No biophysical anomalies, no geological anomalies. The soil hasn't altered, the plants haven't altered, the cell hasn't altered. So everything is the same as the controls somewhere else in the field. So they are dead, they are man-made. But the real thing, 94 out of 100 are made by something else. Doug and Dave, they were two old men who suddenly came forward in 1983, 1984 into the press, world press, and they said, we've made all the crop circles. And they showed how they'd done it really ridiculously with a board and ropes, and that was it. And he had a baseball cap on with a little, and that's how they did the straight lines, which is ridiculous. They did not talk about the biophysical changes. They did not talk about the geometry, how complex it was. They didn't explain anything. You know, that's the problem with journalists. So few journalists really ask the right questions. They are so gullible. And they're like, oh, really? Oh, wow. Oh, gosh. Okay. So maybe they ask, like, well, how did you go about from one place to the next? Because they appear all over England. They should have asked, they appear all over the world. How did you make them in Australia? How did you do them in Mexico? How did you do them in South Africa? You know, how come your wife didn't notice that you went missing for so many nights? They'd never asked the right questions. And they didn't prove anything. But the problem was not Dog and Dave. The problem was the gullibility of the people. Because it was on the BBC News, so everybody believed it. And they all went back to sleep. And that's exactly what was aimed to happen. For centuries and even for thousands of years, we are asking for miracles. We've been asking, you know, God or Allah or whatever name, give us a miracle, show us a miracle, you know, and then we get a miracle and people say, oh, that's not real. And they turn away and they go back to, you know, paying attention to the mortgage and to the political system and to whether the kids are on drugs or not, you know. This is exactly the problem of humanity. What we see here, my message is to the viewer, wake up. Wake up, give yourself a break. There is so much beauty going on. There is so much miraculous communication, contact. We're talking about interdimensional, intergalactic contact. We are talking about the most incredible development for humanity in, I think, the evolution of mankind. Wake up, look around, open your eyes, ask the right questions, dive into the subject, start asking questions, not only to people like me, because, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years, that's a good source. Ask questions to the political leaders. Why don't you give us, you know, clarity? Why don't you answer our questions? Airfield in Bremen Airport, Germany, was closed down for, I think, 5 hours not long ago. Closed down for 5 hours because there was UFO activity. There was unidentified craft. It was not of this earth. And they didn't dare to fly. 5 hours. Do you know how much that costs? Do you think it was a joke? Of course not. Why isn't that on the news? People should wake up and ask questions, start asking questions, demand answers, because we have the answers. Milk Hill, the galaxy of 2001. That was mind-blowing. I was the first in, together with Barrett, my partner at the time. And it was massive. It was the biggest ever. 409 circles. It was positioned on a plateau right on top of the hills near Milk Hill. We searched for hours because we got a tip from, I think it was through Mark Fossil, I think his source was Francine Blake. There's a new one. It is massive. Go and find it. It's near Milk Hill. And we searched and we searched and we couldn't find it. And we said, well, you know, if it's big, why can't we find it? And then Bert remembered there's one field on top. Let's check that one out. And we drove all the way up. We had to walk quite a bit. And then all of a sudden, all around that field, there was one way in. And we saw a little circle. And we said, well, that's everything, you know. And we walked in. And we saw a few circles. But it was undulating. So we walked a bit further. And we said, oh, my God, there's so much more. And we kept walking. Oh, my God, there's so much more. It's massive. What is it? As we were the first in, it was meticulous. It was beautiful. There were swirls and nests, biophysical anomalies. The energy had twisted around and dried out the grass completely and turned it into bowls of grass so you could see the circular movement of the energy. The traces were unreal. The energy was beyond words. The biggest ever. It can't be done by men. I talk to people who do measurements, land measurements, who work for the government, and you see them with these machines, and they said, no way. It would take us, with a team of trained people, about a week to put it into the fields, to put every, because first you have to decide where each circle is going to be and how large it's going to be. And then it is undulating land, but from the air, you don't see that. So from the air, it has to be a perfect circle all around. It was a circular thing. But on the ground, it wasn't. It was ovals because they had to take into account the angle of the slopes. It'll just blow you away when you really think about it. And when you talk to people who work in the fields and, you hear them say, my God, it would take us maybe 2 weeks. We couldn't do it. No way you can do it.
To make a perfect circle, you need flat ground. Then, in theory, it should be possible to create a circle using a rope and plank, drawing the radius from a central point. From the side, it would look like this. But almost no fields are flat enough. The landscape in the south of England is undulating. So in reality, it's almost impossible to create a perfect circle with ropes and planks on uneven ground.
Well, this is one of my favorite formations. It is an owl. It happened on next to Woodrow Hill, and this is quite a close-up. You can see we called it the owl. It has the eyes and the feathers. An amazing formation if you look at the lay. This was quite late in the season, so it was harvested within a few days. And a month later, I flew over, and this was an imprint left in the field, only 1 month later. So, and the green things are nettles that are coming up. I thought it's really very strange, such a strong image of it. And then I flew over 9 months afterwards, and the farmer had planted oilseed rape, and this was what I saw. So it just kept on coming back.
But how is that possible?
We don't know.
Ghost circles is a phenomenon that has been observed and documented several times. This phenomenon occurs only from what crop circles researchers call genuine circles. Crop circles that cannot have been created by humans. Ghost circles emerge in 3 phases. Phase 1 is when the formation appears in a grain field. Phase 2, after about a month, when the farmer has harvested the field, green stems of wheat grow up again, several decimeters from the ground, in the same formation as before, in exactly the same place, and create an image of the original formation. Phase 3, after about 9 months, when the farmer has ploughed, harrowed, and then planted another grain, in this case oilseed rape. In the same field, the same image from the previous formation appears again in the form of stems that grow up about 1 meter higher than the rest of the crop growing in the field. To summarise, the same formation appears a third time in a different crop. According to the Swedish Board of Agriculture, the first step within the phenomenon of the ghost circle can possibly be explained by the fact that the soil where the formation took place is compressed, both by people walking in the formation and from the trampled stems themselves, which contribute to fertilizing the soil. The last picture, where the ghost circle grows up in a new harvest the next year, which is also a different crop from the original, is a phenomenon that they cannot explain, and they can offer no other theories at the moment. According to the Chilbolton Observatory website, the observatory is home to a wide range of science facilities covering research in atmospheric science, radio communications, astronomy, space science, and technology. During our visit to the site, deep space research was being carried out in large buildings next to the observatory, and warning signs were posted all over the compound. Alerts of laser radiation and non-ionizing radiation. Confused about all the unanswered questions from the observatory, we went there at night to record the night sky above the observatory with a time-lapse of 1 frame per second. Suddenly we saw a strange green beam, like a laser beam, shoot from the sky towards the observatory for about 2 to 3 seconds. Darcy Ladd, station manager of Chilbolton Observatory at the time, did not want to be interviewed or comment on the incident.
Long ago you made it clear, come trouble time you'd still be here. Stand by me when time get rough. And now it seems you need a break. The world outside's too much to take. And darling, you've had enough. Whoever stole your thunder must have been sneaking like stray cats in the night.